Have you ever seen an entire empire destroyed? Not by war, not by famine, but by the greed of one man. In a quiet Yoruba village, the drums once beat in joy, the fires once warmed families, and a billionaire chief sat proudly on his throne. But one reckless decision, forcing his only daughter into a marriage she never wanted, would spark betrayal, unleash secrets, and ignite a night of many fires. Before dawn, the wealth of generations would turn to ash, friendships would turn to enemies, and a family built on pride would face its greatest test. This is the story of the night greed burned a kingdom to ashes. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will haunt you long after the last ember fades.
In the bustling town of Itori, where cocoa farms stretched like endless blankets of green, Chief Adewale was the wealthiest man. His white abada flowed as he walked, his gold cap shining under the sun. People whispered that his riches could buy 3 kingdoms, but his heart was as hard as stone. He had one daughter, Amina, beautiful and stubborn, whose laughter was said to melt even the iciest hearts. Yet Chief Adewale's pride was larger than his cocoa empire. He wanted Amina to marry not for love, but for power. A daughter is the bridge to greater wealth, he often boasted at the elders' council. Amina's spirit, however, was free like the Oyan River. She dreamed of choosing her own husband, one who saw her heart before her father's riches. Unbeknownst to her, the chief's decision would ignite a fire that neither gold nor power could quench. At the village festival, where battered drums thundered and masquerades danced, Amina slipped away from her father's watchful guards. There, beneath the iroko tree, she met Tunde, a cocoa farmer's son. His attire was simple, just a brown buba and trousers, yet his eyes held the strength of mountains. Unlike the suitors who flaunted wealth, Tunde listened to her dreams. They shared roasted maize, laughing as palm wine dripped down their fingers. Amina felt alive, unchained. "One day," Tunde whispered, "I will give you not riches, but peace." It was a promise sweeter than honey. But in Itori, secrets could not hide. A palace guard spotted them together, and by dawn, Chief Adewale knew his daughter's heart had been stolen by a man of humble roots. Rage boiled in him like yam in hot water. The chief gathered elders in his marble hall. He declared, "My daughter will marry Chief Olowu's son, Kule." Kule was a merchant's heir, dripping with gold chains and arrogance. The union would merge 2 dynasties, making Adewale untouchable in wealth and power. Amina wept. She knelt before her father, her gele slipping as tears soaked her wrapper. "Baba, love is not for sale. I beg you, let me marry the one my heart chooses." But Adewale's eyes were cold. A river cannot choose its path. It flows where the land directs. That night, Amina sent a message to Tunde through her maid, risking all. "They plan to cage me like a goat for sacrifice. Will you fight for us?" The answer would shape not just their love, but the destiny of the entire town. Tunde went to the town's diviner, Baba Ifa, whose chalk-drawn cowries lay on a goatskin mat. "The chief's power is strong," Baba warned, "but love is a flame. If gathered well, it can burn down even palaces." He tied a red thread on Tunde's wrist, chanting words of protection. Meanwhile, Amina's maid overheard the chief plotting with Chief Olowu. "If the girl resists, we will break her spirit. Wealth must never bow to a farmer." Their laughter echoed like thunder before rain. That night, Amina and Tunde vowed beneath the stars to never abandon each other. They shared a kola nut, breaking it into 2 halves, sealing their fate. But little did they know, betrayal already sat at their doorstep. Kule, Amina's betrothed, was crueler than anyone imagined. He flaunted his horses through the streets, scattering children playing aye on the ground. At feast, he mocked the poor, tossing crumbs of jollof rice at them like dogs. When he visited Amina, his arrogance filled the room. "Your beauty is wasted on farmers. You should be grateful my family even considered you," he sneered, fingering the gold rings on his hand. Amina turned away, her heart tightening. Words spread quickly in the marketplace. Women selling peppers muttered, "A flower cannot bloom in the hands of a careless gardener." The people prayed silently that the chief would open his eyes. Jealous of Amina's bond with Tunde, her childhood friend BC betrayed her. Tempted by Kule's promise of silk wrappers and gold bangles, she revealed their secret meetings. They meet under the Iroko tree by the stream. She whispered. The news traveled fast. One moonlit night, guards ambushed Tunde and Amina. Tunde fought fiercely, but spears outnumbered his strength. He was dragged through the streets, tied with ropes like a thief. Amina screamed, her gele falling into the mud. In the palace, Adewale thundered, "How dare you shame this family?" His hand struck Amina's cheek. That night, the town slept uneasily, for they sensed the gods themselves stirred in anger. Tunde was paraded before the council like a criminal. Chief Adewale raised his staff. "Banish him from Itori. Let him wander until his bones rot in the desert." The crowd gasped. Mothers clutched their daughters, fearing such a fate. Amina collapsed, begging the elders, "If you cut him off, you cut me too. My heart will die with him." But the elders were bound by fear of Adewale's power. They nodded silently. At dawn, guards led Tunde beyond the town's borders. Yet, before he vanished into the misty forest, he turned and shouted, "Chief Adewale, you have planted fire. One day it will burn everything you hold dear." His words struck like thunder, leaving even the bravest trembling. Days turned to weeks, but Amina refused to eat or dress in bridal attire. Her once bright eyes dulled like a lantern without oil. She told her maid, "If Tunde dies, my spirit dies too." The wedding drums began to sound across Itori, but Amina plotted her escape. On the night before the ceremony, she hid in her mother's old hut, wearing a faded wrapper instead of the grand vase chosen for her. She whispered to the wind, "If the gods are just, they will guide me to him." But the guards discovered her hiding place, dragged back to the palace, her wrists bound. She was thrown into a dark room. Outside, the town prepared for a wedding that smelled more of blood than joy. The wedding day came. Drummers beat their talking drums, palm wine flowed, and roasted goat meat filled the air. But joy was absent. Amina walked slowly, her gele heavy, her face pale. As she reached the shrine for the marital rites, a sudden storm brewed. Lightning tore the sky. The elders trembled, whispering, "The gods are not pleased." But Adewale silenced them. "Wealth commands even the heavens," he said arrogantly. At that moment, a masked stranger appeared at the edge of the crowd. He raised his staff and shouted, "This union is cursed. Break it or your land will know fire." Few knew that beneath the mask, Tunde had returned. A sudden fire broke out in Adewale's cocoa wire house. Flames leapt high, devouring sacks of beans. Panic spread. "The gods have spoken," villagers cried, fleeing into the night. Adewale's wealth built over decades turned to ash within hours. Kule fled too, abandoning Amina at the altar. The mighty alliance crumbled like palm oil in hot fire. In the chaos, Amina broke free from her guards and ran towards the masked stranger. When their eyes met, her heart knew. "Tunde," she gasped. Destiny had returned with vengeance. The fire spread like a wild beast, leaping from one cocoa barn to another. Villagers grabbed calabashes of water, for their efforts were like pouring drops into the sea. The drums stopped, the masquerades vanished. Mothers screamed as the night sky turned lead. Adewale stood frozen, his once proud agbada covered in ash. For the first time, his power seemed small. He cried, "Who dares curse my wealth?" But deep inside, fear gnawed at him. The prophecy of Tunde's warning echoed. Elders gathered, whispering, "The gods punish arrogance." The child disobeyed, but the father's greed lit this fire. Still, Adewale refused to bend. "I will rebuild. I am Chief Adewale. Wealth bows to me." His pride blinded him further, even as the flames claimed his empire. Amid the screams, Amina reached Tunde. His clothes were torn, his face hardened by exile, but his eyes still burned with love. She clung to him, tears mixing with soot on her cheeks. "I thought you lost me," she whispered. Tunde held her close. "Love does not die in fire. It becomes stronger." His voice was steady, but he knew danger still lingered. Guards were rushing towards them, spears raised. Amina stepped forward, shielding Tunde. "Strike him and you strike me." The crowd gasped. Never had the chief's daughter defied her father so openly. Some shouted in support, others in fear. The old balance of power was breaking, and the people could sense destiny rewriting their story that very night. Chief Adewale's rage boiled over. He commanded, "Seize them both." But his words met silence. The guards hesitated, their faces uncertain in the flickering firelight. Fear of the gods weighed heavier than loyalty to a man losing his wealth. Adewale's voice cracked. "I am your chief. Do as I say." Yet the authority he wielded for decades melted like palm oil in the sun. Villagers murmured, "Perhaps the gods have chosen another path." Desperate, Adewale raised his staff to strike Amina. Tunde caught it mid-air. Gasps echoed. The once mighty chief's staff trembled in the hands of a farmer's son. That moment sealed the downfall of pride and the rise of courage. From the shadows, Adewale's first wife, Mama Sade, stepped forward. Her wrapper was simple, her eyes heavy with sorrow. She had long warned Adewale against arrogance, but her voice was ignored. Now she stood before him, unafraid. "My husband, stop this madness. You have lost wealth. Do not lose your child too. Amina's happiness is not for trade." Her words pierced the air like an arrow. Villagers nodded, in agreement. The people had suffered too long under Adewale's arrogance. But Adewale shook his head, veins bulging on his forehead. "A woman knows nothing of power," he spat. Still, doubt flickered in his eyes.
The plea of a mother, the loyalty of a daughter, and the defiance of a farmer had begun to weigh against the pride that once seemed unshakable. Bisi, Amina's childhood friend, who betrayed her, stood trembling at the edge of the crowd. Kunle had abandoned her promises of gold once the fire began. Her fine wrappers lay forgotten, and she wore only shame. Amina's bays found her, sharp as a blade. "You sold me for trinkets," she said, voice steady, despite the chaos. "But see how the fire consumes false treasures." The crowd murmured, recognizing the truth. Bisi fell to her knees. "Forgive me, Amina. I was blind with envy." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with ash. For the first time, she understood that betrayal never ends in glory, only in regret. At dawn, the elders gathered at the town square, weary from the night's terror. Smoke still rose from Adewale's ruined barns. They sat in a circle, kola nuts split before them, deciding the fate of the chief, his daughter, and Tunde. One elder spoke. "Wealth is like the yam tendril. It grows where the soil is soft, but pride is a thorn that kills the harvest." Heads nodded in agreement. The people had suffered too long under Adewale's arrogance. The verdict was clear. Amina would be free to choose her husband, and Adewale must humble himself before the community. His riches were ashes. Only humility could rebuild what he destroyed. Far from the burning town, Kunle hid in a distant inn. His rings had been stolen by thieves, his horses scattered. Alone, he drank palm wine bitterly, cursing his fate. "I was to be married to wealth," he groaned. But whispers spread quickly in Yoruba land. News of his cowardice traveled faster than fire. Merchants withdrew their respect. Chiefs refused his father's hand. Kunle's name became a proverb for shame. He who runs from fire leaves his honor in the ashes. Once proud and arrogant, Kunle was reduced to nothing but a man haunted by greed. Even beggars in the market mocked him, for in his downfall they saw the justice of the gods. Days later, Chief Adewale stood before his people, stripped of grandeur. His agbada was gone. He wore a plain wrapper. The man who once feasted on amala and efo in gold plates now shared yam porridge with the poor. With trembling voice, he addressed the crowd. "I sought power over love, and in doing so, I lost both. Forgive me, my people." His head bowed, a sight no one thought they would ever witness. The villagers murmured, some with pity, some with relief.
The mighty had fallen, but perhaps redemption was not beyond reach. Pride had burned, leaving space for humility to grow like new shoots after rain. At the village square, under the same Iroko tree where their love began, Amina and Tunde stood hand in hand. Drummers beat softly, women ululated, and the air smelt of jollof rice and roasted goat, prepared for a true celebration. No gold chains adorned them, no royal horses paraded, yet joy filled the town greater than any feast Adewale ever gave. The people danced, for they knew this union was not of wealth, but of love. Chief Adewale watched silently, tears in his eyes. For the first time, he understood that riches are empty when family crumbles. Love had returned what pride had stolen, and even he could feel the warmth of its fire. Years later, people still told the story of the night of many fires. Not just the flames that devoured bands, but the fire of betrayal, the fire of love, the fire of pride, and finally, the fire of redemption. Adewale lived humbly, teaching children proverbs instead of boasting of wealth. Amina and Tunde raised the family in peace, their names sung in folk tales across Yoruba land. Even Bisi found forgiveness, though her betrayal remained a cautionary tale. And so the elders would say, gathered by moonlight, greed and control destroy families, but love, sacrifice, and humility rebuild even what fire burns away. The children listened, eyes wide, knowing that no empire built on pride can ever last. This is just the beginning. In every corner of Africa, there are tales of love, betrayal, sacrifice, and redemption. Stories that carry wisdom deeper than gold. Don't let this story end here. The next chapter will reveal secrets you never saw coming. Subscribe to Tales by Sammie, tap the notification bell, and join thousands who return each night to uncover ancient lessons wrapped in unforgettable drama. Remember, in our stories, every drumbeat carries a warning, every whisper hides a truth. Stay with us, because the fire of the next tale is already being kindled.